According to the National Electrical Code Article 334.30, cables shall not be stapled flat on top of each other. Staples shall not contact any conductors. In many areas, local codes and practices may differ from the National Electrical Code. It is always best to consult with your local building department or a qualified electrician to determine the specific requirements in your area. In some areas, it is common practice to staple NM cables together flat on each other, but with certain limitations. Typically, up to 3 NM cables can be stapled together flat. Staples should be placed at intervals of not more than 4 feet 5 inches from boxes, cabinets, or fittings, and at intervals not more than 12 inches for other runs. Cable protectors, also known as bushings, should be used where NM cables pass through studs or joists. It is crucial to use staples specifically designed for NM cable. Staples should not penetrate the NM cable insulation or damage the conductors. Overstapling can damage the cables and create potential fire hazards. An alternative method to stapling NM cables together is to use cable struts or hangers. These provide support without damaging the cables. When installing non-metallic sheath cable, commonly called NM cable, several key considerations must be observed to ensure electrical safety and code compliance. Firstly, the National Electrical Code, or NEC, provides specific guidelines regarding the support and protection of NM cable. These guidelines aim to prevent damage to the cable's insulation and conductors, thereby reducing the risk of electrical shock or fire. According to the NEC, NM cable must be secured by staples, cable ties, straps, or similar fittings designed and installed in a manner that does not damage the cable. The spacing between supports is critical. For horizontal runs, NM cable must be supported at intervals not exceeding 4 feet 5 inches. Additionally, the cable must be supported within 12 inches of every outlet box, junction box, cabinet, or fitting. These requirements ensure that the cable is adequately supported to prevent sagging or strain, which can lead to insulation damage over time. When using staples to secure NM cable, it is essential to use staples specifically listed for this purpose. These staples are designed with rounded edges to prevent them from cutting into the cable sheathing. The NEC also prohibits the practice of stacking NM cables on top of each other under a single staple. Each cable must be independently secured to the building structure. This is because stacking cables can lead to overheating and insulation damage, especially when multiple circuits are carrying significant loads. In addition to proper support, NM cable must be protected from physical damage. When the cable is run through floor or wall framing members, such as studs or joists, it must be protected by a steel sleeve or equivalent means if it is less than 1.25 inches from the nearest edge of the framing member. This protection prevents nails or screws from penetrating the cable during construction or renovation. Furthermore, NM cable must be protected when exposed to physical damage. For example, if the cable is run along the surface of a wall in a garage or workshop, it should be installed in conduit or otherwise protected from impact. When running NM cable through thermal insulation, care must be taken to avoid overheating. The NEC specifies that NM cable installed in thermal insulation must be installed in such a manner that prevents the buildup of heat. This typically involves ensuring that the cable is not tightly packed within the insulation and that there is adequate ventilation around the cable. In damp or wet locations, NM cable must be identified for use in such environments. This typically means using NM cable that is specifically listed for wet locations or protecting the cable with a waterproof enclosure. When connecting NM cable to electrical boxes or fittings, it is essential to use the appropriate connectors. These connectors must securely clamp the cable to the box or fitting, providing strain relief and preventing the cable from being pulled out. The NEC also specifies that the cable sheath must extend into the box or fitting by at least 0.25 inches. This provides additional protection against damage to the conductors. When splicing NM cable, all splices must be made in an approved junction box or enclosure. The NEC prohibits making splices outside of enclosures to prevent exposed connections and potential hazards. The conductors must be joined using approved splicing methods, such as wire connectors or crimp connectors. All splices must be properly insulated to prevent short circuits or ground faults. During installation, it is crucial to avoid over-tightening staples or connectors, as this can damage the cable's insulation. The goal is to secure the cable firmly without compressing or cutting into the sheathing. Inspect the cable carefully after installation to ensure that there are no signs of damage. If any damage is found, the cable must be repaired or replaced. In summary, the proper installation of NM cable requires careful attention to detail and adherence to the NEC guidelines. By following these guidelines, you can ensure that your electrical wiring is safe, reliable, and code compliant. Always consult with a qualified electrician if you have any questions or concerns about installing NM cable. The NEC also addresses the use of cable ties for supporting NM cable. Cable ties must be listed and identified for the purpose. They should be installed in a manner that does not damage the cable. It is important to avoid over-tightening cable ties, as this can compress the cable and damage the insulation. The use of cable trays for supporting NM cable is also permitted under the NEC. Cable trays must be properly grounded and bonded to provide a safe path for fault current. The cable trays must be adequately sized to accommodate the number and size of cables being supported. When installing NM cable and cable trays, it is important to avoid overcrowding the cables. Overcrowding can lead to overheating and insulation damage. The NEC also addresses the use of surface-mounted raceways for protecting NM cable. Surface-mounted raceways provide a physical barrier to protect the cable from damage. The raceways must be securely fastened to the wall or ceiling and must be properly grounded and bonded. When installing NM cable and surface-mounted raceways, it is important to use the appropriate fittings and connectors. These fittings and connectors must be listed for use with NM cable and must provide a secure connection. The NEC also addresses the use of underground wiring methods for NM cable. NM cable is not permitted to be directly buried underground. If underground wiring is required, the NM cable must be installed in conduit or other approved raceway. The conduit or raceway must be buried at the appropriate depth, as specified by the NEC. When installing NM cable in conduit or raceway, it is important to use the appropriate pulling compounds or lubricants. These compounds or lubricants reduce friction and make it easier to pull the cable through the conduit or raceway. The NEC also addresses the use of fire-stopping materials for NM cable penetration. When NM cable passes through fire-rated walls or floors, the penetrations must be sealed with approved fire-stopping materials. These materials prevent the spread of fire and smoke through the penetrations. It is important to select fire-stopping materials that are compatible with NM cable. The NEC also addresses the use of surge protection devices for NM cable circuits. Surge protection devices protect electrical equipment from voltage spikes and surges. These devices should be installed at the service entrance and at any sensitive electronic equipment. When selecting surge protection devices, it is important to choose devices that are rated for the appropriate voltage and current. The NEC also addresses the use of ground fault circuit interrupters, or GFCIs, for NM cable circuits. GFCIs protect people from electrical shock by detecting ground faults and interrupting the circuit. GFCIs are required in certain locations, such as bathrooms, kitchens, and outdoor areas. When installing GFCIs, it is important to follow the manufacturer's instructions and to test the GFCIs regularly to ensure that they are working properly. The NEC also addresses the use of arc fault circuit interrupters, or FSIs, for NM cable circuits. FSIs protect against electrical fires by detecting arc faults and interrupting the circuit. FSIs are required in certain locations, such as bedrooms and living rooms. When installing FSIs, it is important to follow the manufacturer's instructions and to test the FSIs regularly to ensure that they are working properly. The NEC also addresses the use of tamper-resistant receptacles for NM cable circuits. Tamper-resistant receptacles prevent children from inserting objects into the receptacle slots. Tamper-resistant receptacles are required in certain locations, such as daycare centers and schools. When installing tamper-resistant receptacles, it is important to follow the manufacturer's instructions. The NEC also addresses the use of energy-efficient lighting for NM cable circuits. Energy-efficient lighting reduces energy consumption and saves money. Energy-efficient lighting options include LED lighting and compact fluorescent lighting. When installing energy-efficient lighting, it is important to choose lighting fixtures that are rated for the appropriate voltage and current. The NEC also addresses the use of smart home technology for NM cable circuits. Smart home technology allows you to control your home's electrical systems remotely. Smart home technology options include smart lighting, smart thermostats, and smart appliances. When installing smart home technology, it is important to follow the manufacturer's instructions and to ensure that the technology is compatible with your home's electrical system. The NEC also addresses the use of renewable energy systems for NM cable circuits. Renewable energy systems generate electricity from renewable sources, such as solar power and wind power. When installing renewable energy systems, it is important to follow the manufacturer's instructions and to ensure that the system is compatible with your home's electrical system. The NEC also addresses the use of electric vehicle charging stations for NM cable circuits. Electric vehicle charging stations allow you to charge your electric vehicle at home. When installing electric vehicle charging stations, it is important to follow the manufacturer's instructions and to ensure that the station is compatible with your home's electrical system. The NEC also addresses the use of backup generators for NM cable circuits. Backup generators provide electricity during power outages. When installing backup generators, it is important to follow the manufacturer's instructions and to ensure that the generator is compatible with your home's electrical system. Firstly, ensure that the cable is securely fastened. Secondly, avoid damaging the insulation. Thirdly, use appropriate hardware. Fourthly, maintain proper spacing. Fifthly, protect against physical damage. Sixthly, consider the environment. Seventhly, follow local codes. Eighthly, avoid overstapling. Ninthly, inspect the installation. Tenthly, consult a professional electrician.